All right, we have to.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
And good day from Tel Aviv, where President Biden has just sat down at an airport here and has made his way off the aircraft. He's here to show solidarity with Israel following the terror attacks of almost 2 weeks ago now. To show that support, he'll be meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is greeting him here at the steps of the aircraft right now. But they will have a private meeting. That's the first order of business. To say that the ground has shifted beneath the president in the hours during his long flight from Washington would be an understatement. Obviously, much attention on the explosion at a hospital in Gaza. That has certainly overshadowed things here. Israel, Hamas trading blame over that explosion, which apparently has killed hundreds of people. And there you see the president and the prime minister now working their way through the crowd. Let's go to NBC's Peter Alexander, our White House correspondent right now, for more on this trip and what they hope to accomplish. Peter?
Lester, there was a hug, an embrace between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu just as soon as President Biden exited Air Force One. Wasn't just meaningful as it demonstrates the relationship between the two, but really symbolic as it represents the relationship between the United States and Israel right now. The two men, as you see, here is that embrace that took place just a short time ago. The two men are going to meet in a one-on-one fashion alongside their teams before gathering with the Israeli Prime Minister's war cabinet, a rare opportunity for the president to see close up exactly what is happening behind the scenes right now in preparation for a likely invasion of some kind by the Israelis. After that, the president, we were told by White House officials, will be visiting with some of the Israeli first responders, those who were first down on the scenes where so many Israelis were killed. The death toll now more than 1,400. The president then is expected to meet with some of the families of those still missing, unaccounted for, and those who have already lost their lives. Later, he will deliver remarks. This is going to be a quick trip for the president, but the volatility on the ground really reflects the volatility of this trip as well. The president, Lester, as we have been watching, was expected to go, had announced that he would be going to Jordan, where he would be meeting with the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, with the Egyptian President El-Sisi, as well as with the Jordanian king. But even before Air Force One was able to take off from the tarmac here in Washington, D.C., that trip was called off, I'm told, by officials with the Jordanian embassy. That was later confirmed by the White House. It was a mutual decision that all sides agreed. In the simple words of a Jordanian official with whom I spoke, they said, under the current circumstances, the summit would not achieve what it set out to. So the president certainly facing real headwinds. And those headwinds, Lester, as you communicated, come as we saw this awful strike where either an Israeli bomb or a misfired rocket by a separate terrorist group in the Palestinian land of Gaza struck this hospital, killing more than 500. There have been competing statements from both sides. The Palestinians insist this was an Israeli strike that targeted a hospital, killing more than 500. The Israelis dispute that right now. The president, to this point, has largely steered clear of weighing in, saying that he was outraged and deeply saddened. He did say overnight that the U.S. stands unequivocally for the protection of civilian life during the conflict, and we mourn the patients, medical staff, and other innocents killed and wounded in this tragedy. But that's just one more piece of evidence of how there are enormous both political and security risks, Lester, for the president during what we expect will be a trip that lasts only a matter of hours.
Yeah, you mentioned security risk, Peter. We should note this is a very active war zone. A beautiful day here in Tel Aviv, but we're mindful that several times a day the sirens sound here. We're shuttled off to shelters, and generally we hear the impact of successful intercepts of the Iron Dome, but still a dangerous environment the president is visiting. Let's go to Josh Letterman. He's also on the ground with us here in Tel Aviv. Josh, could this visit change the direction of the war?
It certainly could, Lester. This trip is shaping up to be not only one of the most extraordinary foreign policy tests of President Biden's presidency, but also a key inflection moment in this crisis, with protests now erupting all around the Arab world. Overnight, we saw massive demonstrations from Jordan to Lebanon, where the U.S. Embassy has now said that family members of U.S. diplomats there, they can now go back to the United States. That is how concerned the U.S. is right now about the level of anger and frustration being directed from the Arab street toward Israel in the aftermath of this explosion at that hospital in the Gaza Strip. Now, overnight, Israel's military continuing to try to push back on the perception and the accusation that it was behind that explosion through an airstrike. The Israeli military saying that it had conducted an extensive post-explosion analysis and determined that not only had Israel's military not been involved in any strikes at that time, but that their radar data showed a barrage of rockets being launched around the time of that explosion from a cemetery near the hospital. Israel's military asserting that it had collected intelligence that showed that in the aftermath of that explosion at the hospital, Hamas operatives had realized what had happened here, that it had been actually an Islamic Jihad rocket that had hit that hospital, and immediately went into cleanup mode, trying to convince the world that this in fact had been Israel. The Israeli government saying they will continue to release more evidence to back up that version of events, as President Biden says that he has directed his national security team to also continue collecting evidence that could get to the bottom of exactly what happened here. But Hamas, Islamic Jihad, other Palestinian groups, they are not buying that Israeli version of events. They continue to say that this was an Israeli airstrike that hit that hospital, causing such significant bloodshed. And so far, Arab nations in the region seem to be siding with that Palestinian version of events, Lester. We heard from the Jordanians and the Egyptians, the two governments that first made peace with Israel and were expected to attend that summit, now canceled in Jordan today. Both of those nations are accusing Israel of being behind this strike, as are other U.S. regional allies such as Turkey. It will be an urgent mission from President Biden today to try to get everybody to take a step back, a deep breath, try to get to the bottom of what happened here, and see if they can prevent this latest incident from derailing efforts both to get civilians out of the Gaza Strip and that badly needed humanitarian aid into Gaza, Lester.
All right, Josh Letterman with that update. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have much more ahead, streaming on NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com, and this morning on Today, and of course tonight on Nightly News, we'll have a full wrap-up of all of this. For now, I'm Lester Holt in Tel Aviv. Good day.